Hey everyone, and welcome to another explainer. Okay, so today we're going to decode this central mystery behind literally the world's most uncommon personality type. We are diving deep into the traits, the behaviors, and the underlying psychology that makes this specific group of people just so incredibly unique. If you've ever been fascinated by personality psychology, or hey, maybe you're just trying to figure out your own place in the world, this is going to be an incredibly revealing ride. Let me ask you a question right out of the gate. Do you often feel like an outsider? Like you're just operating on a totally different wavelength than everybody else in the room? Now, sure, a lot of us feel that way every now and then, but for a very specific group of individuals, this feeling of being fundamentally misunderstood isn't just a passing phase. It's a daily, defining reality. And honestly, there's a mathematical reason for that feeling of isolation. Less than 2%. That's it. That is the estimated portion of the entire global population that has the INFJ personality type. To put that into perspective for a second, if you're standing in a room of 50 people, you might be the only one. It's a striking statistic that really anchors just how incredibly rare the INFJ personality truly is. It's not just in your head. Statistically, you are incredibly rare. Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, the core theory behind Carl Jung and the MBTI. So that term, INFJ, comes from the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or MBTI for short. Basically, this is a personality framework based on Carl Jung's theory of personality, and it's designed to measure our psychological preferences. Now, I do want to impartially state right up front that the MBTI is, at the end of the day, a theory. It gives us these really useful, rough tendencies and frameworks to help understand human behavior, rather than, strict hard science classifications. Think of it as a lens through which we can view our behaviors, not some rigid box you're stuck in. So what exactly makes up that INFJ acronym? Well, it stands for 4 core pillars: introversion, intuition, feeling, and judgment. And when you snap these 4 distinct traits together, they create this highly complex, uniquely sensitive psychological profile. It's this very specific combination of being internally focused, highly intuitive, deeply empathetic, and structured that creates the magic, and for sure, the challenges of being an INFJ. Which brings us to part 2, the internal world, and what we call the burden of intuition. The concept of dominant intuition is just fascinating. INFJs have this profound ability to simply know things without having any obvious proof. But here's the catch. Because of the way this intuition works, they often really struggle to articulate exactly how they know what they know. I mean, you can imagine how frustrating that is. This inability to easily explain their deeply accurate insights can leave them feeling profoundly isolated, or like they're just completely misunderstood by everyone around them. And this intense internal world, it breeds a pretty heavy burden of perfectionism. So do you have a fear of failure? For the INFJ, it goes way beyond just wanting to succeed. They feel this ever-present, almost crushing need to be perfect, to go above and beyond, and to basically exceed everyone's expectations. This heavy intuitive drive to create the absolute ideal outcome puts an immense amount of pressure right on their shoulders. Let's look at how this perfectionism physically manifests. It creates a pretty brutal cycle. Step 1, they desire absolute perfection. Step 2, because that standard is impossibly high, the task suddenly feels way too big and overwhelming. And step 3, they procrastinate. Actually, scratch that. It's more like paralysis. It's deeply ironic, right? Their intense drive to go above and beyond is the exact thing that causes them to delay starting in the first place. Let's move on and see how this builds in part 3. Social interactions, focusing on empathy and small circles. INFJs are ridiculously perceptive. They don't just see what you're doing on the outside. They have this natural ability to intuitively read people's emotional states and underlying motivations. They rely really heavily on that intuition to dive way deeper than the surface level of someone's mind. They're just genuinely intrigued by how other people's minds work and what makes every single person unique. Now, while an INFJ might have a massive network of acquaintances, that dominant intuition makes them highly selective, and that results in a very, very tiny circle of true friends. They basically use that intuition as a filter to separate people who truly share their values from those who might be a bit fake. Because of this, they keep their circle of true, loyal friends incredibly small, but man, they remain fiercely devoted to those few. And a big reason that circle stays so small is their absolute sheer disdain for small talk. Chatting about the weather or the local football team. Literally draining. It's extremely boring to them and zaps their energy. Instead, they intensely crave deep conversations. They want to connect over values, feelings, and genuine emotions. Honestly, if you aren't willing to go deep, an INFJ simply won't stick around. But when they do connect, the empathy is staggeringly deep. It is incredibly easy for an INFJ to walk in someone else's shoes. And it goes further than just sharing a feeling. When a friend exhibits bad behavior or makes a mistake, the INFJ's deep intuition allows them to see right past that surface action. They automatically look deeper to understand a person's core insecurities or maybe the past traumas that might be driving that bad behavior in the first place. All right, moving into our final act. Part 4, Outward Actions, focusing on future focus and broken wings. INFJs are relentlessly future-focused. They tend to view their own past highly critically. So, to avoid feeling sad or stuck, they direct all their energy toward the future, constantly focusing on the next step to hit their personal goals. In the present, this means they're incredibly decisive when things just aren't working. If a relationship is going nowhere or if they're stuck in a stagnant job, they are super quick to break it off or quit. They ruthlessly pursue growth. But right alongside that ruthless pursuit of the future is a massive capacity for care. Does your heart ever feel almost too big? For an INFJ, their heart is often brimming with so much compassion and so much empathy that it can actually become a bit of a liability. Which brings us to such a fascinating concept, the broken wing theory. It's this idea that people who need help can never, ever be abandoned. Because the INFJ has this unique combo of empathy and the ability to look past the surface to see the good in people, they naturally gravitate toward those who are struggling. And while helping others is deeply rewarding for them, overdoing it leaves the INFJ highly vulnerable to taking on far too much stress and frustration. And this brilliantly illustrates the point. Imagine an INFJ has a massive, crucial exam they need to study for, but simultaneously, they have a friend who's struggling with a subject the INFJ happens to be good at. The INFJ will often sacrifice their own necessary exam prep just to offer tutoring to that friend, sometimes even if the friend didn't explicitly ask for help. They'll consistently prioritize healing someone else's broken wing over their own immediate needs. So, look, if you recognize yourself in these traits, congratulations. You possess warm empathy, extremely keen insights, and a profound understanding of human potential. Yes, your intuition might make you feel isolated sometimes, and your empathy might cause you to take on way too much. But the big takeaway here is to proudly embrace that less than 2%. By understanding and owning both these profound strengths and your inherent weaknesses, you're setting the stage for a truly happy, successful life. Which really leaves us with one final thought to ponder. If you are part of this exceptionally rare group, you have a choice in how you view